You know, if you get hit by a 500-pound bomb, you probably need to come out.
I remember just getting blindsided.
I felt like my head exploded.
I didn't have a soldier that didn't get blown up.
I basically told myself I can hurt here or I can hurt there. Either way, I'm going to hurt.
As long as you seem okay, you know, you keep going.
A lot of the attributes between NFL players and soldiers are quite alike.
You play the game to win.
To then remove yourself is just counterintuitive to what you've been working for your entire life. It's very personal.
You don't have to wait for a news announcement. There's a cure for TBI. We can help you right now.
You suffered more than one concussion.
Roger that.
How many?
At least four separate incidents of IED blast.
I've had 7 documented, where 4 I was unconscious, 3 I had to leave the game. The reward outweighed the risk at that time.
I think a lot of the attributes between NFL players and soldiers are quite alike. 2 groups of people who are dedicated, courageous, and really work off the ethos of mental and physical toughness, and how we can help both players and soldiers be able to come forward and get the proper care for this really tough issue.
It's just not you as leaders or commanders. It's you as your fellow soldier or your fellow player. If you see that they've been injured and you can tell that they're not necessarily with it entirely, we're not asking you to make a diagnosis, but make sure you tell somebody to get them off the field, get them off the battlefield.
The battlefield versus the playing field. Most times, neither the soldier nor the player wants to come off.
As an athlete in the athlete's culture, there is no such thing as self-regulation. You play the game to win. So there's no such thing as making the right decision in the heat of the battle. You stay on the field to win.
I literally had guys that would not go out unless I was with them. Because of being in Helmand province, it's not a nice place.
Or the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Stigma, duty, and pride often combine to keep those who've suffered traumatic brain injury from getting off the front line or putting themselves on the sidelines.
Well, you spend your entire life getting to the point to be in the NFL. And so once you make it, to then remove yourself is just counterintuitive to what you've been working for your entire life. And so it is, not to mention the fact that when you're in that state, you're impaired, whether it's a severe concussion or whether it's even a mild concussion. And so you're asking somebody to, in an impaired state, to make a logical decision, which is, I mean, most football players don't make logical decisions anyway, so much less in that situation.
Are you the same man today as you were before you suffered them?
No, I'm not. My wife got this for me. It's a joke that it's my old man pill bottle, but I take medicine 3 times a day, and I'll just show you. Like every morning, I get up. This is my cholesterol medicine. This is my headache medicine, and this is my seizure medicine for my head. 45 minutes before I know I'm going to go to sleep, I take more pills. Another seizure medicine, the other half of a seizure medicine, a vitamin D, and a sleep aid.
Staff Sergeant Sean Hibbard is the father of 5.
I think they're determined to try and make me go bald because the oldest 3 are girls.
These are his kids, too, young members of a new baseball league he's starting near his home in Clearbrook, Virginia.
I
He's a reservist, and 36 months of deployments also took him away from his full-time job at the Army Spatial Center at Fort Belvoir. That's where he's a subject matter expert on sniper operations and IEDs.
First-hand experience.
He and his unit encountered hundreds of IEDs, but 2 of them came within 2 weeks in May of 2009. He was providing cover during counter-IED operations with British forces when they rolled over a pressure plate, setting off about 100 pounds of explosives.
Not too much really do I remember, except for just a lot of kind of chaos and then just making sure everybody was okay.
12 days later was one of his worst of the war.
We had RPGs from both sides of the road, interlocking machine gun fire, and I had my sniper rifle, and I was on top eliminating targets, because I had exposed EOD techs who were assisting doing a route clearance. The vehicle directly behind us was about 15 meters behind us, hit the IED, overturned the vehicle. I jumped off my vehicle without a weapon, grabbed the metal detector, cleared a path, and started administering first aid. After we medevaced him out, ended up passing away in the hospital.
3 months later, it happened again. That August, his unit encountered 157 IEDs in just 1 week. Not all of them detonated, but they did take one more direct hit. This time, it was a 500-pounder.
I remember feeling just kind of distant, just very kind of separated from the incident itself. Just as in you're just kind of going through the motions. You see somebody, you just react, but not like yourself. A lot of ringing in my ears. But I could still see, I wasn't unconscious.
We talk about warrior ethos, we talk about a soldier's creed, that you'll always be there. And so the issue I worry about is, does that make us afraid then to come forward and admit that we have a weakness, especially one that you can't see?
General Odierno played football and baseball at West Point.
I can compare both. I mean, having been deployed several times, it would be very difficult for me to leave as a commander my soldiers at any level, and I wouldn't do it myself. I kind of agree with what the NFL's about. I wouldn't take myself out. There'd have to be somebody else who'd say, we're going to take you out.
Staff Sergeant Hibbard also spent time on the gridiron, playing professional arena football for the Richmond Revolution.
If you were injured as a professional football player, could you pull yourself out?
Oh yeah.
Easier than on the battlefield?
Yeah, definitely. I think the military and the football field is so similar as you're out there performing a function for your team. The difference is the severity and what's on the line. Army, it's life or death. The battlefield of football, it's for the love of the game.
The love of the game and his love for at-risk kids, he was raised mostly in foster care, drives him to also individually coach up-and-coming players. Jacob Smith just earned the starting quarterback position at Ayler School in Stevens City, Virginia.
I heard you got knocked around in the head a little bit. Something about getting elbowed. What happened?
I was elbowed, came back and hit me right in the back of the head. I was all dizzy when I stood up.
So did you tell the coach?
No.
Why not?
I want to keep going.
It's a culture that's ingrained early on.
It starts with you guys. You got to tell the coaches.
Okay.
If they don't know that you've got something going on, that you got concussed, because I guarantee you what happened when he told you, when you told him that you had an injury. What did he do? Did he treat it seriously?
Yeah.
Never lead with your head. That's the biggest thing, especially when it comes to tackling or anything like that. You know, the head stays upright, the chest is what leads, and the shoulders. So that's why they keep proper form, head one side or the other.
This is a cultural change that's going to take time to make sure people understand they need to recover from these injuries fully before they go back in.
Same with us as culture. It's about changing the culture of leaders doing the right thing and making the right decisions to take care of their soldiers.
It's also now our responsibility to let the guy on the left and right know it's okay to come to him and speak up, because I would rather know that I need to get him out of the fight as quick as possible so that he can rejoin us and we can be a strong force later.
Now you know that.
Now I know that.
Could you do it though?
I think it would depend on who was with me.
I've seen close to 250,000 or 300,000 service members perhaps might be affected with traumatic brain injury.
I was at FOB Salerno in early June of 2012 when a suicide bomber driving a truck with a significant amount of explosives crashed into the wall and set off a huge blast. I got thrown, and then I felt like my head exploded, and I felt like liquid poured out of my right ear.
Sergeant Major Robert Hammerly was on the biometrics task force in Afghanistan, charged with tracking insurgents through fingerprint or iris identification.
Suicide bombers came running through the hole in the wall. After the truck blew this huge hole, everybody's kind of stunned. They drive up, they get out, and they all run through with their suicide vests. They were eliminated subsequently inside the base.
That's when the Sergeant Major went to work. Despite the dizziness, headache, and a ringing in his ears, in addition to significant arm and shoulder pain, he picked up his biometrics device and set about fingerprinting the dead.
To see them on TV 6 weeks later, oh, I know that kid. I don't know him, but recognize the face, because they all were saying their name. Hi, I'm Hyder, goodbye, I'm killing myself. You know, there were so many people. There was almost, about 100 people suffering the same type of injuries in that event. I was treated there at FOB Salerno, and they recommended that I return to Bagram Air Base to the Concussion Care Center. Even as I stand here and my ear is ringing and my head is kind of spinning or bent over.
Imagine trying to communicate when everything you're hearing sounds like this.
Even as I stand here and
it might be further muffled by a hearing loss. Add to that a headache and dizziness. Well, that's a small sample of symptoms suffered following a mild TBI.
I feel like a pumpkin, and somebody carved the inside of the pumpkin out and they poured wet cement in there, so it sloshes around a little bit, and there's pressure behind my eyeballs, a dull ache.
TBI, traumatic brain injury, is not a disease, it's an event.
Dr. Hee-Chin Che is a physiatrist specializing in physical medicine and rehabilitation at Fort Belvoir Community Hospital.
Okay, well, you have this problem. This is a disabling condition. It's chronic, perhaps the rest of your life. How can we improve the quality of your life? How can we help you live despite of these problems? How can we reduce the suffering?
Dr. Che says the term mild TBI is almost a misnomer, that it refers only to what can be seen on an X-ray.
CAT scan, CT scan is normal. It looks like it's red normal, so we categorize as a mild traumatic injury because we cannot visibly see the injury on the scan that we are available today. So that the categorization, mild, moderate, severe, has to do with the radiographic finding, has nothing to do with the clinical presentation or prognosis.
After each explosion, the symptoms would seem to get a little worse. And after the fourth one, that's when I had all the symptoms that you would see on the posters that they have in theater.
Chief Richard Simonson is in public affairs. He traveled with a provincial reconstruction team in Afghanistan, making sure their mission there wouldn't be forgotten.
I think they would have let me leave, but I had a young photographer and a public affairs mission that needed to be done. And we were in a remote province for most of it, in Nuristan province. And so if anyone was going to tell the stories of the PRT and the Iowa National Guard infantry company that was there, it was going to be me. I basically told myself, I can hurt here, or I can hurt there. Either way, I'm going to hurt. But if I stay here, I can tell the story of these people. And so I stayed. Basically, I have a headache every day. If I get up with any speed at all, I'll get dizzy, like I'm going to fall down. I have sometimes difficulty forming my words and expressing myself. And if I saw you again next week, not only would I not remember your name, I may not even remember that I ever saw you before.
I don't think I'll be lying if I say that. I do believe, with the knowledge that we have in 2012, that mild traumatic brain injury and concussion will recover 100% in ideal situation. The ideal situation is like sleeping 8 hours a day, worry-free life. We don't have any problems in the world. Everybody's singing Kumbaya. That's not true.
So much of the cure depends on rest without stress. And for most people, resting is a learned behavior.
We have to assume that people don't have to rest, especially nowadays with Facebook and Twitters. Right. I've learned that, especially younger generation, their idea of rest is like being on the internet. Yeah, and that's actually huge burn in the brain.
For people like Sergeant Major Hammerly, some solutions are as simple as a giant sticky note.
I got several of these up in my room, okay? Because I said, I feel overwhelmed with the demands in my life, and okay, so I said, what's the problem? I feel like I have no time to rest, and then lots of appointments and physical challenges, tired, maintaining a routine, and then, so we identified it all. Okay, so, and we broke it down into social obligations. And I have to learn to set boundaries with people and say no, limit the time of interaction, and educate them. Though I look all right to you, I'm not feeling all right.
Chief Simonson gives pause for his calming influence, which also helps with his post-traumatic stress.
I have a service dog named Yoko, and she keeps me calm, helps me in terrifying public speaking situations, lets me get on that crowded metro bus and metro train, and people kind of give me space that I need. And she's really, really helpful.
Both Hammerly and Simonson talk about acceptance, a simple acknowledgement of their conditions, which helps in working through day-to-day tasks.
I have been given permission by my occupational therapist to tell people, I've been blown up and I can't remember you. Where have we met before? And that was pretty liberating.
Kind of, can we start over again? I should,
absolutely take
yeah, we need to tell me the question before we start, and then I can give it, probably easier to.
So we're talking about anatomical brain still being the fairly same or minimally injured, but the functional level, the person sort of unravels. And this is what makes us complex.
I knew I had to take a certain exit, and I looked at it and I drove right past it. And after I turned around and took him, I went to drop the same trip to my daughter to her school and drove past her exit. So it's just a habitual cycle.
Frustrating.
Yeah, very frustrating.
In other words, a stress response to the symptoms.
I don't want to come across sounding stupid.
Can slow or stop healing.
This is a time you should tell your family members and tell people around you that I need to allow the brain to heal. You need to help me to minimize, reduce stress. This is a time to really relax, really, not worry about the future.
The fact of the matter is that I didn't have a soldier that didn't get blown up. Every time I had somebody get blown up, I sent them to get checked. I did 15 months, and I did 34 of 36 months. I know I had 28 direct hits on me, and in my battalion, we found and cleared about 850 IEDs, and we encountered about 3,500.
And you know when I was there, sir. The fact of the matter is that I didn't have a soldier that didn't get blown up. Now I'll ask you, how many Purple Hearts you think we had in my battalion? I had 19. I had 19.
Sergeant Major Todd Burnett has survived 46 IED strikes. He's now the Command Sergeant Major of West Point's Corps of Cadets.
I often wonder about them soldiers because we're doing a lot to try to figure it out. But there's an emotional effect, there's a medical effect, there's just all kinds of effects that I think you have. And every person deals different with an IED blast. For me, I was a battalion sergeant major and a brigade sergeant major, so I didn't have time to say, I need to worry about this or worry about that. I want to get back out.
From the year 2000 through 2012, more than 187,000 service members suffered a mild traumatic brain injury, accounting for 76% of all TBIs. But those numbers are obviously drawn only from those who report symptoms. Some still go untreated.
This type of war that we're engaged in, I mean, the enemy uses bombs and IEDs to get to us. So again, it's specific to the particular battle that we are involved in. I think we're more aware of concussion or more aware of MTBI. We actually can determine even we know how to determine when the event happens, whether it be in the field or battlefield. We have an amazing way of getting those things done. So therefore, obviously the number is going to go up.
Getting checked by a medical professional in theater directly after the event is critical to proper treatment. But it still requires a subjective judgment either by the victim of the injury, the commanding officer, or a third party or peer.
Oftentimes, regardless of how serious a situation may have been, most soldiers want to soldier on. And what we want to provide them and their leadership is an objective way to look at what just happened.
Head trauma in theater happens a variety of ways. Blunt trauma is essentially a blow to the head.
A blunt trauma impact may be something very simple as a soldier traveling in a vehicle or being inside of a gunner's turret and the vehicle having to come to a rapid stop, and maybe the soldier is lurched forward.
A head acceleration injury has to do with rapid movement, where the brain is sort of bounced inside the skull.
And a kinetic energy impact, meaning an enemy soldier fires, shoots, and hits the soldier in the head with an enemy round, particularly a round or a piece of fragment that the helmet was designed to stop. The helmet will capture that, but there will be forces imparted upon the soldier's head and his helmet.
And the third type is a blast injury, or the wave of pressure following an explosion.
If you're within maybe a 50 to 100 meter radius of an IED blast, depending on the size of that blast, there will be shockwave propagation forces that encompass a number of soldiers in that radius.
This device, the Generation 2 mounted sensor system, is designed to take the guesswork out of determining the force of the source. Essentially, it consists of 6 accelerometers, 3 linear and 3 rotational.
What that means is that as a helmet moves in a linear fashion, back, forth, up, and down, the linear accelerometers will record that data. The rotational accelerometers will capture any rolling, pitching, yawing of the helmet as it moves around.
There's a battery and a USB port. The data is routinely downloaded from the helmet and can be matched using a date and timestamp to a particular event. In 2012, there were about 7,000 sensors in theater. From spring until fall, about 4,300 impacts were recorded. Most of those were low-dose or green events. The other 300 were more serious, amber or red events.
We have met with the NFL a couple of times.
Part of the agreement between the Army and the NFL is research and technology sharing.
There's a shared and common thread across both organizations with regards to the traumatic forces being imparted on the head and the brain.
RG3 rolls. Lurking, nobody there. Trying to run, and he's hit hard at the 5-yard line. Uh-oh, he's shaken up. Wow.
It seems to be a little bit more complex when somebody goes through a blast-related injury versus getting hit on the football field.
Each circumstance likely generates different physiological reactions.
When you're in the blast-related injury, you are dealing with life and death situation. So the body physiology is a little bit different when the brain gets injured versus a football field. Well, of course, it's very adrenaline flowing and very intense situation, but still it's not as intense as life and death situation, the fear factor. It releases certain hormones or proteins in the body that perhaps injures differently than somebody getting hit in the football field.
On either field, it's a matter of putting heads over hearts.
We play the game because we love it. You do it because you love it. You come back in the game because you want to compete.
I'm just doing my job. And if I wouldn't have received the Bronze Star of Valor, it wouldn't have changed. I'd still do it again. Because that's what we do.